Fred and I first met in college where we shared a few classes and often sat together. We hit it off and soon found ourselves falling in love. However, there was a challenge in our relationship. Fred's mother, Holly, she seemed to dislike me for some unknown reason and made efforts to come between Fred and me. I used to talk to Fred about how uncomfortable his mother's behavior made me, but he never took any action. He found it hard to stand up to her because she was all he had while growing up. So I decided to let it slide and endure her constant criticism. She loved finding fault in everything I did, even things she didn't know about. I suspected Fred was sharing details with her, which only fueled our arguments. After a lot of fighting, Fred agreed to stop sharing personal information about me with his mother. We dated for around 3 years before tying the knot. Despite Holly's attempts to sway Fred, our bond remained strong. We distanced ourselves from her for a while. During that period, both of us scored promotions at work. Although I earned slightly more, we divided our expenses 60-40, with me covering the larger share. While our relationship flourished, I felt the need to pursue a hobby for personal fulfillment. Design had always intrigued me, so I decided to explore graphic design, something I could do from home. Without Fred's knowledge, I invested in courses and equipment, keeping my project a secret. I preferred keeping my ventures private as not all of them panned out. The only person I confided in was my best friend, Jess. "I've picked up a new interest," I told her. "Another one of your hobbies you'll ditch soon?" she asked. "I hope not. I aim to make good money from it." "Really? Finally getting paid for a hobby?" "Yes, actually. I'm delving into graphic design." "Great choice. It's a lucrative field. I've taken some courses and want to start freelancing. I might start a business." "Starting solo might not be my style. I was thinking of joining a firm." "Nah, that's too routine for you. I have friends starting businesses. You could design their logos and websites." "That sounds fantastic." The people Jess introduced me to were wealthy risk takers willing to invest in a beginner like me. Despite my lack of experience, they appreciated my work and connected me with more clients. Gradually, my side hustle became a significant source of income, easing our financial strain. I started saving to surprise Fred with something special, but whenever I wanted to discuss it, he seemed distant. His behavior raised concerns, but he avoided discussing it. The first sign of trouble was when he confessed to spending all his earnings on investments soon after payday. We argued, but we managed to navigate through that month. I worked extra hours to make ends meet, hoping things would improve. But the following month, Fred repeated the same mistake, leaving me furious. How could he squander his money so recklessly? I lashed out in frustration, later regretting my harsh words. I hoped it would prompt him to be more responsible. Yet, when it happened again the next month, I felt drained. Despite my efforts, Fred's financial habits persisted. My graphic design gig became our main source of income. When Fred couldn't contribute for the third month in a row, I reached my breaking point. "How could you let this happen again? Haven't you learned anything?" I confronted him. "I'm just trying to maximize returns, but I messed up," Fred admitted. "Messed up? Losing your entire paycheck isn't a small mistake. You got your money though, right? We'll handle things as usual." "No, I'm done. I won't cover for you this month. Figure out your own expenses." "What? You can't do that. And you can't gamble away everything you earn. But here we are." "So, what? I'm supposed to go hungry and take public transport?" "We'll have food at home, but you'll have to use public transport since you can't pay for gas." "So you want me to look poor?" "Taking public transport doesn't define your status. Stop acting entitled. If you wanted to drive, maybe you should have thought about your gambling habits. You're selfish and heartless. How could you do this to your husband?" "What about what you're doing to me? I've been working extra hours to cover for your losses. Can't you see things from my perspective?" "You have no perspective worth considering. I'm out. I can't deal with you right now." After Fred stormed off, I couldn't understand his behavior. It was then I started suspecting Holly's involvement. While Fred was away, I decided to investigate. Since he had logged into his bank account on my laptop and saved the password, it wasn't hard to access it. To my surprise, he had plenty of money in his account, and his transactions seemed normal. I was puzzled. Why was he hiding money from me? Why the lies? Feeling confused, I checked his messages for answers. The first person I noticed he had texted was his mom, discussing our recent argument. He told her I lashed out because he wouldn't give me money, and Holly responded with an "I told you so." It confirmed my suspicions that she was influencing him. She'd always harbored animosity toward me, but I didn't realize the extent of it until now. As I scrolled through their messages, I discovered more. Holly had bombarded Fred with texts about me, highlighting my supposed flaws like being money-driven and only with him for his wealth. Ironically, I was the main breadwinner in our household. It was clear she was getting to Fred. He started texting her about trivial things that annoyed him about me, and she only fueled his complaints. It explained why Fred was growing distant. Eventually, they plotted to cut me off financially. Initially, Fred resisted, but Holly's encouragement wore him down. 2 months ago, he went through with it. He informed Holly about my extra work hours 1 month and our subsequent argument the next, which only worsened things. I was devastated by what I discovered. Unsure of what to do, I sought solace at my best friend Jess's house. She's always been my go-to person in tough times, no matter the hour. Showing up unannounced at 11:30 p.m. understandably alarmed her. After letting me in and settling me with a glass of wine, she asked what had happened. So, spill the beans. What's got you so worked up? I've just uncovered some unsettling things, and I'm at a loss for what to do. Oh, is this about Holly and Fred? Yeah, you remember how Fred's been throwing away his money on those sketchy investments for the past couple of months. Yeah, it was bizarre. Did he do it again? Yes and no. What do you mean? He's had his money all along but refused to give me any. What? That makes no sense. You've been shouldering most of the household expenses, right? Exactly. That's what's so baffling about his behavior. Is Holly pulling the strings in this? Of course. She's been texting him about my flaws for a while and even persuaded him to stop supporting me. And she's clueless about your income too. But what about Fred? Shouldn't he realize how much you contribute? Apparently not. I'm not sure how to handle this. It's pretty obvious, though, right? Cut off his support, then divorce him when he's down. Isn't that a bit harsh, Maya? He didn't think about that. Why are you worried? You know what? You're exhausted. Sleep on it, and we'll talk more tomorrow. Jess was spot on. I was utterly drained both mentally and physically. The events of the day had taken their toll, and all I craved was sleep. Luckily, it was the weekend. The next day, Jess and I put on one of our favorite movies and soon drifted off. The following morning, we decided to escape from our troubles and indulge in a day of relaxation. We stayed in bed binge-watching movies and shows, cooking delicious meals, and cherishing each other's company. Despite my efforts to push away thoughts of the previous day, they lingered. I knew I needed this time to process everything. However, that evening my phone rang. Seeing Holly's name on the caller ID made my heart race. Unsure whether to answer, Jess encouraged me to take the call. With trembling hands, I answered. Hello, Holly. You're despicable. Whoa, hold on. What's this about? You're just after my son's money, aren't you? Excuse me. Is that why you cut off his expenses? No, he's been squandering his money on those foolish investments. I can't keep supporting his reckless behavior. Well, that was all a test. A test? I wanted to show Fred that you're only with him for his wealth, and you proved my point. Don't you think you've crossed a line meddling in our marriage? Who are you to judge me when you're the one chasing wealth? Fine, I don't want my son's marriage to fail. What do you suggest we do to fix things? I want you and Fred to split everything 50-50. Everything. Are you serious? Yes, let's see how long you can handle it. I'll draft a contract for both of you. Once signed, you must stick to it. Fine. If Fred agrees, we'll do it. I want a copy of that contract. Agreed. We'll discuss further on Tuesday. I couldn't believe this was the state of my marriage, and anger surged within me. How dare Holly accuse me of being a gold digger? And how could Fred tolerate it? I supported him through everything, even his mistakes and lies. When I shared the call with Jess, she smiled, helping me see the silver lining. Splitting everything evenly meant Fred would have to shoulder this share of our major expenses. He had no idea about my side hustle, which I kept secret until it gained momentum. I wanted to surprise him with its success and buy him something extravagant. Knowing I had a solid backup plan brought me relief in that moment. Tuesday arrived sooner than expected. Jess joined me after we finished work, eager to witness the unfolding events. Upon our return home, we found Holly and Fred already there. Fred was preoccupied with his phone while Holly sat with the lawyer, tweaking what seemed to be the contract on his laptop. Holly barely acknowledged me, but Fred looked visibly nervous. He tried to signal for us to talk privately in the kitchen, but I brushed him off. Instead, I approached Holly and requested to review the contract. The lawyer obliged, and as I suspected, it outlined an equal split of everything with the added clause of no financial assistance between us. I agreed and signed the document. It didn't take long before Fred began facing challenges. At first, Fred and I kept our distance, both unwilling to engage with someone who seemed intent on my suffering. But when you share a living space, avoiding conversation is nearly impossible. Fred made efforts to bridge the gap between us, but I initially brushed him off. Eventually, his persistence wore me down, and I reluctantly started talking to him. "Can we please talk? This silent treatment is getting us nowhere," Fred pleaded. "What exactly do you want me to say, Fred?" "I don't know, but I miss us." "Do you? Then why agree to a contract dividing our finances?" "I wanted to see if you were truly invested in our relationship. Your mother has caused so many issues between us, yet you still believe her. Is this really the best solution?" "Don't speak ill of my mother. And what money do you think I need from you?" "Look, I don't want confrontation. I'm trying to mend things. There won't be any progress until that contract is gone. It's only been 2 weeks. Since we signed it, I have yet to see any proof that you're not just in it for the money. You're impossible, you know that. Listen, if you're struggling financially, tell me, I'll help. But wouldn't that violate the contract? Besides, I don't want to be accused of breaking it. Why are you making this so hard? You're the one who created this mess. Can't we just be civil?" "Fine." I could see Fred wrestling with conflicting influences, the beliefs instilled by Holly versus his original values. The Fred I married would never have made such foolish decisions that could harm me, yet here he was, obedient to every word from his mother, a decision he came to regret. Thankfully, I had already paid off our major loans that month, leaving Fred in a bind the following month. With my shares settled, I enjoyed financial freedom. I indulged in splurges, treating myself and Jess to lavish dinners, fine wines, museum visits, and cozy cafes, documenting our adventures on social media. Despite inviting Fred to join us multiple times, he always declined due to his financial struggles. Meanwhile, my graphic design side hustle flourished, allowing me to reduce my hours at my day job and even contemplate quitting altogether. Fred's difficulties were evident even in our groceries. His side of the pantry and fridge often remained empty. While part of me felt sympathy, I couldn't forget that he brought this upon himself. Later, Holly showed up at our doorstep. Jess and I had just returned. Her presence caught me off guard. "Hey, Holly, what brings you here?" "Don't act innocent. I know what you've been up to, and I'm calling the cops." "Pardon me, what are you talking about?" "You've been robbing Fred, haven't you?" "Why on earth would I do that?" "Because you're seeking revenge. You're not happy about that contract he made you sign. My poor son has been struggling all month while you're out living it up on his dime. Firstly, your son doesn't have any money for me to steal. Yes, I despise the contract, but let's not forget who's truly responsible for it. You're the one who pressured us into signing it, and now your son is suffering because of it. You liar. I'll be dialing the police right now." "Go ahead. I haven't taken a penny from your son." "How do you have so much money, then?" "Your job doesn't pay that much more than Fred's, and he mentioned you've cut back on hours." "I have another business on the side, a graphic design venture. I intended to surprise Fred with it until you filled his head with nonsense." "You started a business without telling me?" "I plan to buy you a car with the money I earned." "How much do you make from it?" "More than you think." "You lied. I didn't do anything wrong. I was trying to do something nice and you ruined it. Since you care so much about your son, maybe you should support him." I handed divorce papers to Fred, which I filed right after signing the contract and kept until now. Fred looked shocked, but I was indifferent. While Holly would normally rejoice at the sight of the papers, she seemed furious instead. I informed them I'd be moving out in 3 weeks and would continue to split the remaining loan payments. But that was all. Fred pleaded with me, but I reminded him it was his doing. It's been a few months since everything unfolded, and I can happily say I'm free from that toxic relationship. Holly tried to contest the divorce, but with our assets separated by the contract, there was little for Fred to gain. In fact, he ended up losing more money, struggling to keep up with the mortgage payments. We sold the house, and he moved back in with his mother. Meanwhile, my life has taken a positive turn. My business is thriving, and I've had the opportunity to collaborate with major brands. It's been a blissful and fulfilling time for me. I'm grateful I had something to rely on, or I might have ended up in Fred's situation. I hope he learns from this experience, but ultimately, it's not my concern.